Hi there. I thought we'd have a look at today at some of my favourite things that we've got in the shop. As you know, when I first took over Mrs. Johnson's Emporium, I didn't know anything about knitting, didn't know anything about crochet or sewing. I've had to learn everything. Didn't know about running a shop. I've had to learn it. Obviously, I've learned it so well because it's fabulous. First of all, before I go on to those things, I've started learning a new thing, and it's home hairdressing. Isolation home hairdressing will all look like this by the end of isolation, I'm afraid. Right, we get lots of people wanting to start to learn to knit or to crochet, and wanting to know what wool they can have, and invariably they pick some fancy wool, some expensive wool, and I like to ask them to have a go first on something that's not as pricey, something like Stylecraft Special. And that's just £1.90 a ball, 100-gram ball. This one, just have a look at that. They used to be £2.90, but because they're mixed colours, and Stylecraft made them just the same as the normal special, so that's a great price. But also it's a lovely tightish twist, so that you're not going to be splitting it whilst you're a beginner knitter, crocheter, and it's not going to make it harder to learn. Now, if you start on double knitting, which is the most common type of wool, it will grow really slowly. You'll be a slow knitter, a slow crocheter at first, so it will grow really slowly, and that's disheartening in itself, isn't it? So what I like to say to people is start on a chunky yarn, and then it'll grow quite fast, and be quite. It will make you proud as you make something quite quickly. Now, on each ball of yarn, it should tell you what knitting pin you use to do that yarn. If it doesn't say anything different, it's the same for a crochet hook. So here, this is chunky, and we can see it's a 6mm needle that we need, knit pin that we need. So that's all you need, a 6mm knit pin or a 6mm crochet hook, and one ball of that yarn. For the same price, as a fancy wool, you can get 2 balls of that and make some stripes in there. Now, lots of people start out with the children or with themselves just making a scarf, and that's really quite boring, just knitting a long thing. And often as well, because it's quite plain, it can show any mistakes, and your tension's not fabulous at first. So I like to have people still making a rectangle so that they're not increasing or decreasing, but you can fold that over and make a cushion cover easily. I'll show you some cushion covers on another day, or you can fold it over and make a handbag or something like that. So be a bit more inventive with the rectangles that you make, and you can end up with a product that you're quite proud of. So that's when you're beginning. Now, also, people sometimes want to start cross stitching, and they're drawn to children's cross stitch, which have big squares that you're cross stitching across, and the finished product looks quite childish, not in a good way. What you should be trying to do is getting a cross stitch that's quite small. Don't get one that's an A4 paper size. That's too much for you to do. A bookmark, a pincushion, something like that. Have a look at those with lovely sewing pictures on, so that would be quite appropriate. And inside a kit like that, you'll have the needle. Usually it will tell you on the kit what's in there, so that is all that you'd need. Okay, what about starting to cable? Now, cable needles, if you've been doing cable for some time, you probably use a straight needle or possibly a cranked needle, which has just a bit of a V-shaped in it, so that it hangs on your wool. When I started cabling, which wasn't long ago, it must have been about 9 years ago, my cable needle kept sliding out. And that's, you know, your old fingers and thumbs when you're learning. These are fabulous, I think, if you're starting to learn to cable. Have a look at those. So because it's a V shape, it will just hang perfectly while you do the other stitches and then come back to those stitches. It hangs fabulously. I use those all the time as well. Another thing, last thing for beginners. Oh, no, not last thing. To stop your wool sliding off the end when you put it down, it's nice to have point protectors. And my finding these are these Knit Pro ones, and they're rubber, they're not plastic, they're rubberish, I don't know what they're made of, but they're rubber feeling, so they kind of stick to the end of your needle. They don't slide off easily. They're really good, and they're pretty stretchy. I've had these on the end of 10mm needles, which you struggle getting a point protector for. And before I found these, I used to use elastic bands, which doesn't look half as nice. I was showing you about the cross stitch things. There are tiddlers. Look at those tiddlers. 154, that's all it is. And look, there's not many stitches there. You could finish that quite quickly. And then you don't need to put it in a picture on a wall or anything like that. You can put it on a pencil case. You can decorate a jumper even. You know, use them. Don't just have them on the wall. People fill up the walls and then they're heartbroken. They can't think... They've no hobby left. So you can put them on anything, can't you? Yeah, another thing that I like, and it's the Knit Pro again, the Symphony knit pins. But more than that, it's any kit of circular needles. On the continent, they only knit on circular needles. They don't knit on straight pins. So more and more knitting patterns are needing circulars. And if you think about it, if you have a circular for every thickness and every length, that's an awful lot of circulars. It's going to be a drawer full. You're never going to find the one that you need. So it's much better to have an organised set so that you don't have to have as many things. Start thinking about investing in that rather than buying odds and ends. Multi-pom. Now, Charlene's our pom-pom expert. You seem to be focusing on there, Brian. You can still see me, can't you? I'm the main attraction here. So multi-pom, it will make pom-poms of all different sizes. It'll make different numbers of pom-poms. You can make multiples of pom-poms, and it's just an easy thing to have stuck in a drawer. It's not going to break like the plastic ones, so we really like that. Charlene really likes that, and she knows her pom-pom makers. You've seen in a recent film that I've rehomed my circular needles, because look at that. Is that not so much nicer than this big, clear, ugly wallet? So I like that. And it's nice to have pretty things, isn't it? Another find are the clips. Instead of pins, so that for sewing up your needles, are these little things. And these are the big ones. So I've just used that in sewing up the super chunky cardigan jacket that I've just made. So much easier. It really holds it still while you're sewing. They don't slide out easily at all. Now there's nothing about this other than it's so cute. I just want to have earrings made out of them. Aren't they so cute? Tiny little balls. Love them. And our favourite buttons at the moment are ones for lads, yeah? My son would have loved these when he was young. Have a look at those, Brian. You'd like some of these, wouldn't you? Yes. Do you want me to sew some of these onto your work stuff?
They'd be lovely.
Wouldn't they? So they're police cars, taxis, cars, trucks. Are they flatbed trucks? What are they, Brian? What?
Pickups.
Pickup trucks, all sorts of a boy type thing. Oh, a speed Speed Koi there, I can see. So they're lovely and something for young boys. They seem to be left out. There's all sorts of pretty things for girls. And last, but totally not least, my favourite knitting pattern designer. And it's, and I don't know how you say it, Sashio Ishii. Mini knitted safari. So little tiny lovely things. Mini knitted safari. Are you close up? Can you see the little pictures on these, Brian? So that was the safari with all the little animals. And then the mini knitted farmyard. And we've got our caravan on a farm with a wonderful, wonderful farmer. And I was going to knit him. Is there a cow on there? Is there a cow? I can't see a cow. Oh, I was going to knit him a cow. Surely there'll be a cow. I can see a goat. And then my granddaughter, she has a bedroom that's painted like the sky with stars and sun and rainbow. And I was going to make her some things while I was in lockdown. Mini knitted toys, so all sorts of different things. And you might recognise the castle. We had a version of the castle in our shop window. Mini knitted ocean, we could do those. We had a yarn bomb with all seaside stuff on that was very popular. It was outside Notriani's at one point, our local artisanal ice creamery. And mini knitted woodland. And when they're small, as soon as they're small, they're cute. And they're so perfect, the things that Sashio designs. Love them. And that's today's inspirational chat from Mrs. Johnson. And I'd like to wish you all happy isolation. I'm struggling a little bit, but I've got enough stuff in my in tray that I could last with work until this time next year.